So here's what I use to hold these shirt pins. And the knobs on the cabinets are smaller than doorknobs. So I had to really grind them down to make them small enough. You can see I'm cutting them off with the wire cutters here. Drilled the holes with a number 74 drill. Put a little glue on it and stuck them in the holes. Now, most of these cabinets had glass knobs like we were talking about earlier, George, but I couldn't even find beads that were small enough, you know, like little beads to use for this that would have worked as glass knobs. So here's the stairwell that would go down to the basement and the side cabinet in the kitchen. This cabinet here was partial cabinet and it partially disguised the chimney that went up. So it had a divider wall in it, which I did not put in for purposes of my construction. And another stairwell for the second floor. And there's a stairwell that go up to the second floor. Cutting out the styrene holes after I glued the styrene on the other side. Now I had a few places in here that the walls were bare and weren't covered with anything, and you would have seen the back side of the plywood. And I didn't want just the back side of the styrene to show because that doesn't make sense. So I got some good images of plywood, reduced it down, printed it out, cut them into pieces, and filled them in these places that needed to look like raw plywood. That's what's going on here. Here's that little section I'm building where I'm going to leave part of it exposed, and you can see the plywood on the inside of the walls here. Get over there. Well, I went too far. Well, we'll go back. So this is kind of showing the process of putting the styrene on the wall. I've got the door jamb in, including the little stop. You see that the door goes up against the casing around it, the baseboard, and then the little furring strips. Here's some of the cabinetry I built. Again, these cabinet things were all beveled by hand, you know, on the panels over here on the cabinet doors. They're glued on permanently. They don't open or anything. And with all the little knobs put on it. And here's all the cabinetry for the house. This kitchen sink, that was a real pain to do. I have some section on that later. So this is putting on the exterior siding. So here's a section in the back before the window is cut out. See, I put it on. I go over stuff. I found it's easier just to put it on going over everything, then go back and cut it out. So, oh, hey, you can see my little nail holes here.
How'd you cut out your windows? What'd you use, a little chisel?
For what?
You put on your siding, then you cut the windows out? What'd you use?
I used an X-Acto knife, a real sharp blade. I would turn it upside down and cut it from the back side. And then I would sand it to make it real smooth.
Okay.
So this is just the process. Here I'm transferring the measurements on so that each of my pieces of siding actually lines up, because they get crooked real fast, you know, if you don't keep them straight. I covered the whole area. And see, here's where I've turned it upside down, and I'm cutting it out actually with the utility knife here. To get into the corners or something, I'll use just a blade like this. Here's the front wall of the house over here. That's the interior of that front wall.
Hey, Tim, what did you glue your siding on with?
Just white glue.
Okay.
Yeah, or, you know, carpenter's glue. I went back and forth between just white glue and carp. Here's the section I'm leaving exposed. So the siding will come up to here where my little cursor is. Then you see some tar paper over the shear wall, which is over the 2x4s. And you're looking into the interior walls here. That'll be shown when I kind of finish it here. So this is that same section. Now I'm putting on the exterior siding pieces. Here they've been cut out and I'm putting the windows in. I've cut all the window casings here. Then I would stain them and put them in. So here's all the finished walls from the interior side and exterior. This is partially both. This is a piece that's sticking out. The rest of it's on the inside of the house. So, you know, all the cabinetry had to be painted, the interior walls had to be painted. So I had to mask off the windows, anything that I didn't want, you know, the cabinet glass that I didn't want to get paint on. Then they were all airbrushed a bunch of times. So down here in the bottom, I'm making hardware for the stair rails. This is the piece that goes on the wall, and then this is the little piece that sticks out and hold the stairwell. Can you see me moving the cursor here? The lower right. Then some glued together, and these were really tiny. Then they were primed, left, painted, and glued on the wall. And because the upper floor comes out, I couldn't glue on the top of the stair rail here. I have to leave that loose. I needed one more step at the bottom of that stairway, so that was fixed. Then I did a bunch of deals how to make the plumbing for the sink. I tried finding if anybody sold this stuff, and nobody did. One guy sold a sink that would have been really great, but he didn't sell any plumbing for it. And I sent him an email and said, you should make plumbing for this. You know, it's no good without it, you know. So I had my plans. I originally tried this in metal and it didn't work. I would try to solder one part and the thing was so small, the solder would unheat on the other part. So that didn't work. So I ended up with metal. This was my first attempt and it ended up just too big. So I remade it again, a little smaller. I did about 4 times on this thing. And you see it looks pretty crude close up, but it does a trick. It's all made in styrene. Then I started gluing the walls together.
Your diamond patterned floor, is that all little pieces of tile or wood or that you use?
Which part of the floor?
On the kitchen, the diamond kitchen?
No, that's a print.
Oh, that's the print,
Yeah,
okay.
I looked up, I did some research on what would be typical linoleum flooring in a place
Okay.
like that. See, here's the little cabinet. We have this like little cabinet by the front door there. That's that kind of mudroom sort of area. Then we had a back porch on this thing because of the elevation of the property. The back porch was a good couple feet off the ground. The front porch was maybe 1 step off the ground. So I'm building the back porch here, which will be installed when I get it into the diorama. Now I'm putting together the roof rafters. And you notice this section that I cut all those little roof rafter pieces out so I could make a removable section. This is the overhang part of the eaves there. You can see I'm gluing it on. I had to do a bit of sanding and leveling to make everything fit when I finally got it there. You know, everything, in spite of how accurate I tried to cut everything, things are still off a little bit. And so I had to do a little tweaking here and there to make things fit, but it finally came out good. You can see this space here that it would not fit, left a space over here. So after doing a little bit of sanding and tweaking, I got it to fit real nice. And this is all the underlayment for the shingles. So all these pieces that I cut out down here were the overhang part of the shingles that you could see from the underside of the eave. And all these pieces here are the standard pieces of wood that the shingles were nailed to. And here's the window that fit in the attic up here. Here's the hole for the attic floors here. These are the end walls of the attic. And the attic I handled a little different since it didn't use plywood. It actually used real wood, you know, real boards up there. So I used individual boards when I made the attic, and you'll see that as it goes. You can see the individual boards here in this painted piece. And here's the lift out section of that attic. There's the surround wall for the stairwell, so you don't fall down the stairwell. You can see it installed over here. And the chimney fit in there in the little end trims of wood. Making shingles, I made about 3,500 shingles by hand. I would cut all the widths of them out of like 1 by 10. I can't remember anymore what I used on this. Then I would double side tape them down to a piece of wood, and then I would sand them at an angle so that they were tapered. As you can see over in this picture here, they're tapered. So here's my little case of shingles, and some of them are being drenched in the weathering. A lot of shingles. So then I figured out my spacing on it. I use this to start creating my spacing. This was a test row here. It's not glued on. And then the shingles were started to glue on the bottom, over in that bottom picture here. I would apply some glue. I would put the shingle on with just a very slight space between it. I used a level piece going from left to right across it to keep the rows even. You can see that down here.
How long did you work on this project?
Probably about 10 months, I would guess, not including all the pre-planning and the plan drawings and all that stuff that I did some time ago.
Seems to me it was
Actual building,
actual building. Well, including making the doors and the windows.
yeah,
Because
probably.
you spent 6 months just working on those doors.
So I don't know. I think the whole time it was somewhere between 10 and 12 months to build the house. And, you know, that's working on it as much as I could, but I had other things to do and that stuff too. So here's this lift out section that I'm building here. And you can see when it's placed in here, and then it's placed here, you can barely see where it goes in there. And that's with it lifted out. And then you can see here, it's in place with the chimney hole. And this is the skirting that went around the bottom of the house here. Then all the corner pieces had to be put on, you know, to cover the edges of the siding. Then I installed the doors, and I cut little hinges from those shirt pins again. You can see how I've got it marked here. And I cut them, and then I would use a little jig to know how high I wanted to glue them each time. And I glued the little hinges in. They look like hinge pins, you know, the whole hinge isn't there, but it gave the effect I wanted, and then I hand painted them. So you can see that section I left open here. So this is the back edge of the house. The porch will go here. The porch that's raised up a couple feet, and the small one-step single thing will go here. Here's the basement and the basement window over there. These are some different views of it. And it's really neat because I can lift the whole house off of the foundation from here, so you can look into the basement. Then you can lift the whole roof section up and look into the house like this. And then you can lift that little other piece out in order to look into the attic. And then they all go back into place. So that's it, guys.
That's amazing, Tim.
Thanks. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I really enjoyed working on this thing.
What museum is it going into?
Pardon?
What museum will it go into?
Well, if the Westwood Museum will take it when I'm gone, they're welcome to have it,